Wolfwalker. 1. Sam sat alone at his kitchen table, which was set for 2. He could tell by looking at the whitening bacon and soggy eggs that breakfast was cold. He tried the coffee and winced. His leg bounced. He looked at the empty plate across from him and the empty chair. He stopped his leg bouncing. He straightened his knife, making it line up with the blue gingham tablecloth. He looked at the clock. Just past 8. He stood past the 3 empty jail cells, took his coat off the nail by the door, and pulled it on as he went outside. Sniffing in the cold, he locked the jailhouse door, then hopped off the porch. He paid no attention to the fog or the noise of his boots crunching on the gravel. His eyes were on the ground, his thoughts on himself and the cold, uneaten breakfast, and, most of all, the empty chair. Samuel. Sam looked up and around, but he was alone. He trudged on. Samuel. Hello? There was no one, but the voice had sounded close, in his ear. It had been smoky, like redskins, but that was impossible. Samuel. Who's there? Sam spun, putting his hand on Pap's pistol, but there was no one behind him. Wait. He saw a figure coming out of the fog. Who's there? He repeated. Creepy, this fog, a bow-legged old-timer muttered as he trundled out of the mist. Gives me liver shivers. And he shivered from head to toe to prove it. Yeah, Sam said, taking his hand off his pistol. He shook his head and trudged on. He stepped over the train tracks, casting a sidelong glance at the powder keg where a light glowed yellow in an upstairs window. Ahead of him, lights glowed in the windows of the mission. He could even hear voices and laughter inside. He stepped onto the porch, making the boards creak. Before he could knock, the door flew open. Sammy! A young woman named Homily hollered loudly enough to announce his arrival to all the women in the mission and send them into a frenzy of activity. Then she leaned in a little too close and asked conspiratorially, How was breakfast? Since Sam hadn't had any, he couldn't say. You know, she whispered, tracing the outline of his sheriff's badge with her index finger, unlike some people, I always make my engagements. She blinked her doe eyes up at him. She was trying to be very coy. From inside the mission came Easter's sharp voice. You harpies leave that poor child alone. He suffers enough harassment from... But the rest of her admonition was cut off by the young women exploding out of the mission and into Sam's face. They pawed and clawed at him, trying to get their hooks into him, in every sense of the phrase. They begged him to walk with them, to sit with them, to let them wear his badge, to let them shoot his pistol. One even volunteered to cut his hair. He'd have run away if he hadn't been trapped against the railing. Girls, 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 Easter cried as she beat them off the porch with her bonnet. Run along, shoo! Groaning, the women walked off into the fog. Easter counted them while Sam straightened his clothes. In the distance, the church bell began to ring. Easter put her head back into the mission and called, Eden, Susan, this train's bound for glory. Then she pulled on her bonnet and walked off the porch. Sam stood there, alone, listening to the distant church bell. Easter had left the mission door open. He leaned so he could peep inside. Eden had her back to him. She was pulling a shawl around her shoulders. As she turned toward him, he straightened, hoping she hadn't seen him. The floor creaking ahead of her, she came out. She went right past him. She'd have walked right through him if she could have. She didn't even acknowledge his holding the door open for her. Susan coming? He asked, glancing into the mission. Easter must have missed her. Eden was already merging with the fog. Sam shut the door on the empty mission and hurried after her.